What's up, everybody? It's your boy SB, and you are now tuned in to episode 2 of season 1 of the Real Black Gold Podcast. I'm your host, SB, and I just want to give a quick shout out to my boy MX Focus behind the scenes. And we have a great guest today. This is a friend.
First guest.
I don't use the
First
word
guest.
brother lightly because, you know, in hip hop, everyone uses the word brother.
Yeah.
It's my brother. It's my brother. And I'm like, nigga, you don't even know that cat, man. He's like, you, my brother. But anyway, this is definitely someone I can call a brother, a friend.
Yes, sir.
We've known each other for, over 10 years now. And I'm very, very happy to introduce him to the TRBG pod audience. It's my boy, RUKUS. So, yeah, everyone give it up for Ruck. So I guess we'll just get started. And today's topic, we're going to focus on the topic called Be the Bag.
Be the bag.
And Be the Bag, interestingly enough, was a phrase that this genius over here coined. We were actually out at a day party, you know, participating in Sunday Funday extracurricular activities at Bell Station.
Yes, sir.
And so we were... Us three of us, that's me, himself, and our friend Rizzo, we're all having a conversation that had to do with self-worth and basically how to, you know, how you think of yourself, how you see yourself in general, in light of the world, and how that attracts certain or different kinds of people to you. And Ruck just blurted this thing out. Be the bag. You got to be the bag. So that's what the topic of today's podcast is. Be the bag has to do with self-worth, so we'll be delving into different aspects of self-worth. So I got my book here, make it official. So
got the run sheet.
I know, right?
Official run sheet. Okay.
So we're gonna start off with, you know, who's RUKUS. Introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay. So I'm RUKUS. I would say that I like to define myself as a storyteller. A lot of people call me an artist. They would say, okay, well, he's a rapper, but yes, I do rap, I do write poetry, I write nonfiction, I write fiction. But most of all, behind all of that, behind anything that I do, I think it's always about the story. It's always about the narrative. So that's what interests me is telling stories. I'm interested in people's stories. And so I'm always trying to convey through, whether it's through song or through writing, you know, a story from a perspective that people haven't really thought of, or from a perspective that I feel like a lot of people can relate to but have not heard articulated in that particular way. So that's how I kind of define myself, and so I've kind of been doing my thing for a few years now, and still doing my thing. So that's how we cross paths.
Dope. Yeah, it's true. So full disclosure, we met. This was before Facebook groups. In fact, this was even before Facebook was developed. There was a thing called message boards, guys. You know, message boards.
Don't date them. Don't age.
Don't hate on the message boards, right? And so this particular message board started off being called Igbo Writers, and then later turned into Niger Writers. So shout out to all the Niger Writers who are out there. And you know, we would. There are different people who showcase their different talents, and you know, I was into hip hop, I was into music, so we would post verses, would post poetry, and Ruck always seemed to have like some of the dopest, you know, haikus. I remember your haikus were fire, and so it was like, you know, and we all would exchange ideas and things like that until I moved to Houston in 2006, and then, you know, we officially met at this Nigerian event where unfortunately your name was brutally mispronounced. Brutally.
RUKUS,
but
not RUKUS.
RUKUS. We met, we exchanged numbers, and we just became friends. We just kind of hit it off. We just pretty much vibe. So, right. So you talked about what you're passionate about, how you got the name. So I guess the next question for me is, how do you feel now about relationships, especially within the Black community? Like, how do you feel about the state of our relationships? Be it, of course, everyone wants to focus on the romantic aspect, which will probably dominate the conversation, but romantic, familial, everything. Like, what are you seeing right now? Because there's been a lot of recent events that have really, unfortunately, really triggered us, you know, in major ways. Rest in peace to Botham Jean. Rest in peace to Joshua Brown. You know, so and so many others who've died, you know, amongst the various parts of our community. So what is the state of relationships right now in terms of what you're seeing, social media, just in general conversation?
I mean, I think a lot of us are. I think a lot of Black people are lost right now. I think we're trying to. I see that we're moving into these echo chambers, and I think that's a result of social media. So you see a lot of. I mean, even social media is steering us that way. Facebook is steering people into groups more, and it's moving less away from that big community and moving more into, find your private group of people who share the same thoughts and ideas as you, and moving with those. And so I think that society in general, and this is not just, about Black people, but in general, I think that we are all getting kind of siloed off, and we're all going into our own individual groups that have people who think like us, who act like us, who have the same ideas as us, and that's kind of it's not a horrible thing sometimes, but I think it's kind of worrisome in that I don't think we remember how to interact with people who don't share the same views, who don't share the same beliefs. I don't think we are in an era that knows how to compromise and not jump to the extremes, to not think that because that person's different, that different is bad. So that's like kind of my high level. Now, if you start moving down into individual relationships and moving into romantic relationships, I think that you start to hit on some of those same themes and you can start to see why there's problems with relationships. People will meet each other, and if this guy doesn't agree with X, Y, and Z, then he's done. Like, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. And same way with dudes. Dudes are like, well, if she doesn't do this, this, and this, done. And now there's so many options available. There's all these different dating apps. There's all these different ways of interacting and meeting people. So I think now it's very difficult to convince somebody that, stick this out and try and understand this person that's sitting next to you. Try and understand this person that's across the table from you on this date. Because they're like, why should I? Why should I do that? Why can't I find somebody who thinks just like me? I can go on this app and select the exact height, the exact weight, the exact shape, the exact political views, the exact religious beliefs. And I should be able to select that, cue that person up for a date. Why would I deal with this person here who has a different background or a different way of doing things than me? And so I think between social media, between the access that we have, and I'm not blaming social media, I just think that the tool allows for the manifestation is that we're all siloed off and just dealing with like minds.
So that brings me to an interesting point, because for me, I think I'm trying to figure out, so, with relationships specifically, or even casual friendships and whatnot, so from a spiritual standpoint, a biblical Christian standpoint, right, we are encouraged to walk with people of like mind. We're encouraged, can two walk together except they be agreed and stuff like that. So now the question for me, I guess, becomes, and probably for some out there, is, there is, from what you're saying, there is an advantage in talking to people who believe differently from you, think differently from you, see life differently from you. So when it comes to relationships, how do we kind of straddle that line in terms of sticking things out, working things out, or meeting someone, who, they think differently, believe differently, and making a relationship or building a life together? Like, how do we straddle that fence? Because I feel like from a spiritual standpoint, we're encouraged, it's rammed into us in, like, you should walk with people who are like you. You should move with people who are like you. Even people refer to the scripture, don't be unequally yoked with a quote unquote unbeliever and things like that. Like, so how, I guess, what would you recommend, or how do you straddle that fence in your life?
Well, no, I get that, right? Like, so I do get that there are some advantages to commonalities, but the question is, like, what is it? What are the things that you really need to share to have commonality with somebody. So, me, I like ogbono soup.
True.
I like egusi soup.
Yeah.
I like pepper soup.
Yeah.
It's all soup. It's all Nigerian soup.
Right.
Like that's the commonality.
Right,
so
right,
if if you want to take it to scripture and to believing and Christianity, well, I would say that the only prerequisite that that matters the most is like, are you a believer? Do you believe in God? Do you believe that that Jesus is the Savior and the way and the truth? Like, if you believe those things, then okay, that's that foundational
We have a foundation
commonality.
Yeah.
Now we can work from there.
Right.
And then now it becomes, you may have some other core beliefs.
Right.
But if we don't necessarily agree on who our favorite sports team is, if we don't necessarily agree on, I don't know, economics.
Yeah.
If we don't necessarily agree on certain things, like, it's not the end of the world. Like,
those
used to be things that people move past,
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's like people want to be 100% aligned, and if we're not aligned, then I don't want to hear it. You're canceled, and it's just that cancel culture, this polarizing culture, and so go back to answer your question. I think that just having core values in common is important,
right?
But beyond that, like the spice of life is variety, is being different, and getting different perspectives is what helps people grow. And I think a lot of us are missing that nowadays. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because like you said, personally I believe, right, when it comes to even God's spirituality, I believe God is a God of diversity. I mean, if you just go outside and just look at the flora and fauna, like the vegetation, there are different colors of flowers, there are different heights, there are different types of trees, and all of these things seem to be in harmony. You don't ever hear like an oak tree complain to a shrub, yo, you're blocking my sunlight, or whatever. Like, but in humanity, like you said, echo chambers, it just feels like, okay, well, you're Pentecostal, I'm Catholic. Oh, Catholics are bad, they're terrible. Why? Oh, well, they have all these religious rights and so on, something like that as an example. Or even better, I'm Christian, well, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you don't believe the same thing I believe. But we all believe in a God, though. Like, we believe in a source and sustainer of the universe, that type of thing. So, I feel you. So, I guess to segue into the next question would be, what does it mean to you to be the bag? Like, when you say be the bag, which is a dope hashtag, by the way.
Hashtag be the bag.
What does be the bag mean to you?
I mean, I think be the bag is a very simple concept. It just means you are the prize.
Right.
You are worthy. You are worth something.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, especially for men, you get taught that women are the prize and you are the hunter,
right?
And that you are supposed to chase after them and seek them and corner them and just and that's cool if that's what you believe. Like I'm there's people who believe very traditional things, and there's people who have more progressive and modern views or whatever, but no matter what it is that you choose to believe, being the bag just simply represents that if you are somebody who is traditional and you do believe you need to seek out a woman, well, you too are worth something, and you too are a prize. And she, as much as you are seeking her, she also needs to seek you as well. She needs to meet you halfway, because you are worthy of being met. Right. If you're somebody more progressive, it might be a more extreme stance. It might be like, you know what? I'm good in everything that I do. I love myself, and I don't feel like I have to chase anything. I feel like whatever is meant will come to me. I feel like I'm worthy of being noticed too. I feel like I'm worthy of receiving signs from a woman that, you know what, I am attracted to him, or I am interested in him. Right. And so I think be the kind of that slogan, be the bag, is something that could be attached to somebody who is really traditional, or somebody who's into more modern belief.
Gotcha. How do you, like, if someone were to ask you, okay, Ruck, how would you define? Because I feel like be the bag speaks to self-worth. I think they're the same thing in my understanding, and how, like, in our conversation, private conversations. So how would you quantify self-worth for a black man, like, especially in 2019, a young black man, a kid is 15 trying to figure it out, like, or even a 35-year-old still, like, finally getting it, like, how important is self-worth to us? How would you define self-worth?
I think self-worth is everything. I think that, you know, if love is like a well, you don't, the amount of love that you have to give is proportional to what's in that well. You can only take from what is in that well. So if you don't, how can you properly love anybody else if you yourself are not full of love? Like, how are you going to be able to give that love in a healthy fashion? So I mean that's number one. I think for black men, there's a struggle that goes on, because so much of what we consume puts us down. So much of what we consume labels us as hypersexual, labels us as criminals, labels us as uneducated, you know, boxes us as athletes or musicians or entertainers. That's it. And so I think for, you know, and then even within the scope of that, within entertainment and music, like, you'll see, like, man, if you don't have a stack, if you don't have a bad chick, if you don't have a bag of money, if you're not popping bottles, if you don't drive a Benz or a Ferrari or a Lambo, like, oh my God, what are you doing with your life? And I think all of those images that circulate through different media can make it very easy for a black man to feel like, yo, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not hitting. I'm not.
I ain't there yet.
I'm not there. And then if you're not there, you feel like you feel like it lessens your worth. Nobody's checking for you. I'm not doing. And, you know, in this, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And so in today's era, man, like, you log on to Instagram and you just be like, man, what am I doing with my life? How's this person living this house? How's this person got this bad model chick? Wait, how they buy that Ace of Spades? And you just be looking, you just scroll through, and by the time you spent, you know, 30 minutes scrolling through Instagram, you leave and you're like, you know, you look around your apartment and you're like, man, what am I doing?
Well,
And so I think it's very important for us as black men to, number one, be self-aware, right?
That's a key. That's a big word. That's a big word.
It's like self-aware. Like, what? Like, remove the noise for a second. It's like, what is it that actually makes me happy? What is it that I like to do? What is it that makes me feel good about myself? So, for example, maybe what you like to do is, or what makes you feel good about yourself is helping people. Like, what makes you feel good about yourself outside of yourself? Like,
that's a good one.
You know,
what
like,
makes you feel good about yourself outside of yourself?
Because typically what I found is that the things that we seek for ourselves, the happiness and the fulfillment tends to be quick, snap of a finger. So you'll hear artists, you'll hear businessmen talk about how, you know, somebody won an Oscar or somebody won a Grammy or something. And they're like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe I won. And then the next day,
that's it.
That feeling is gone.
It's gone.
You won that Grammy. And you realize that's not really what made me happy. That's something I was seeking because I was seeking validation for myself, but it's not really what makes me happy. And so the things that tend to last a little bit longer is, you know, you meet somebody that's struggling, you talk to them. and you realize they have a story. They tell you the story, and in some way, whether it's by giving them $5 to get a meal, or whether it's helping at a shelter, or whether it's doing Habitat for Humanity and helping somebody construct a house, like, you're happy in that moment, and when you're doing it, and then you're happy for days after, and then it becomes a memory of like, man, you know, I remember
you felt so fulfilled.
You felt fulfilled. You felt fulfilled in that moment because you did something for somebody outside of yourself. And so, to kind of get back to like that self-worth thing, it's like figuring out what are those things that bring fulfillment to you and happiness to you that's a little bit more lasting, you know. And once you figure those things out, how do you integrate those things into
your life
in a way that's sustainable, so that you are consistently feeling fulfilled? And that is what builds that. So, like, you know what, I am doing something for people outside of myself, and I am fulfilling myself in that process, and I feel good doing that. And I don't think we don't learn that.
Yeah, we're not talking. It's interesting that you mentioned that. And full disclosure for the audience, you know, I used to be one of those people, and every now and then I pull myself back, where, you know, you hear about this whiz kid and maybe IT, or a golden child somewhere, you know, a young millionaire that just broke through and sold stocks or something, and I would always be like, dang, what am I doing with my life? Like, yo, what am I not doing right? Even as a rapper, you're like, yo, man, these guys don't rap better than me, like that type of thing. And I used to struggle with those things, because I feel like as us who are Nigerian or immigrants, black immigrants, black African immigrants, it's there's you're born into the world with the notion that you must achieve all these things at a certain age. And if you don't achieve these things at a certain age, well, you don't see your mates are doing this. What are you doing? You know, and it like you said, comparison is the thief of joy. So I guess from what you've said and what I gather, self-worth is basically placing value on yourself. And one of the ways that you can feel more of that value, because I believe everyone comes like with an innate, intrinsic value. Everyone is born with intrinsic value. And so you're saying that the way you connect to that value is by giving of yourself to people, doing things that, you know, make you happy, that you're passionate about, pursuing those passions to their end.
And I'll take it deeper than that, because I think what I covered is more like how do you maintain that self-worth, right? But I think intrinsically, no matter what you believe, even if you're not somebody who believes in Christianity, everybody has to construct or subconsciously constructs their own heaven and their own hell.
True.
So your heaven might be, you live in a $500,000 home, you have a beautiful wife, you have 2 kids, you're a pillar in the community, you do a lot of things to help people. Like, that's the ideal life. That's who you want to be. You want to be that guy. Your hell might be everything goes wrong. You've lost your job. You take on some of your worst habits. You womanize. You know, you're not stable. You don't have that stability in your life. So you have this heaven and this hell, and you're somewhere in between there right now. And so everything becomes geared. What the things that make you feel worthy are the actions that lead you closer to that heaven. The things that make you feel less self-worth are when you start tilting in a direction that takes you closer to that hell. And so I think that's the daily battle that we all go through. And so the question is, are people consciously thinking, like very consciously considering, like, what is that heaven? What is the best version of myself? And am I taking the steps to get there? Because that's truly, when you're not doing anything to get to that best version of yourself, to that consciously or subconsciously, if you're not doing anything, that's when you start to feel less
That's
worthy.
true. Absolutely. And I don't mean to interject, but I feel like, again, to bring this to black men specifically, because I feel like there are not many of us speaking to these issues. Because you've mentioned a lot of things with respect to wealth, and I think for us as black men, we tend to associate a lot of our intrinsic value, our self-value, or self-worth to wealth. How much money we have in the bank account, what kind of car we're driving in, and so on and so forth. And then what you're saying now is having self-awareness, which is a knowledge of self, an awareness of who am I outside of these things? Who am I outside of racism, colonialism, like for us who are immigrants, racism for our brothers who are here? Who am I outside of all these isms, even patriarchy as well? Who am I outside of all these things?
Well, think about the example that I gave you. So I said you wanted to, like, maybe your ideal life was the Benz, a $500,000 home, a beautiful wife, 2 kids, and you're doing all this stuff in the community, you're helping people, all of that, right? Okay, let's say that was your heaven.
Right.
Now, take that snapshot of your heaven and then ask yourself, why do I want the Benz? Does the Benz make me feel fulfilled or happy?
Yeah.
Like, do I really feel happy because I love that car? I love the drive. I love the smell. Like, I love cars like that. The German engineering. Or do I want a Benz because it serves as a symbol and other people will think that guy's got it because he's got a Benz. He's
I can
doing
pull
good.
up. Yeah, I can pull up. Yeah.
So is it about everybody else?
Right.
Is a $500,000 home about, you need the space and that's what you want. That's what enough space for you to do your art, to have the kid. Or is it more about, I want people to come in and think my crib is fly? Yeah. So when you start asking yourself those questions and you start separating the things that you want or that you think will make you happy, but they're really predicated on the thoughts of others, versus the things that will make you happy because they actually make you happy. Then now you start to see, like, okay, well, if I do these things, that's what's going to make me feel worthy. If I do these other things, then I might feel happy temporarily, but I'm furthering the notion that my happiness is predicated on the opinions of others.